Brendon Kleen, cold open question of the day for the April 3rd edition of the Just Basketball Show. We're going to talk about the NCAA Women's Tournament later, particularly Cailtin Clark and what she did against LSU in the rematch of last year's title game to get Iowa to the Final Four. And I don't say this to pick on these two players. I want to be very clear about that because there were some very impassioned, I think very human defenses of Angel Reese from her teammates that I found awesome. And to see those players stick up for their teammate like that was awesome. So I don't mean this to like pick at her in a real way because she was really good and got hurt in that game and all that stuff. And Hailey Van Lith is like a very known player. But who was a better meme after defending Cailtin Clark and shrugging? Angel Reese or Hailey Van Lith? Who's a better meme?
I think that the one that will survive the longest is Hailey Van Lith. Just the fact that she was foregrounded and Cailtin was like fully in flexing celebration mode at the same time just feels very relatable for all of us watching who are maybe not, 6'4" or whatever Angel Reese is, and as physical and athletic as she is, whereas a short girl, we can kind of put ourselves in that position. We all can feel like we are Hailey Van Lith just being shot over and over and over. So that's my pick. And she was all of us on Monday night, just feeling helpless, feeling like if we were there, we would probably just be breaking down in tears.
That is correct. In the moment, the Angel Reese one made me chuckle more because Cailtin Clark hit this absurd, like, one-legged pull-up three kind of thing over Angel Reese on a switch. And Angel Reese was just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, the instantaneous reaction of just like, what the heck, man, from the side, like, really got me, just catching it in the moment. But it's a Hailey Van Lith one, and it's because of the framing. Like, that would be, if we're talking about, like, the meme Oscars, that's in the category for, like, a best shot, best cinematography meme. Like, that's where that's at. It's perfectly shot. It's layered. It's almost it's the same vibes, Brendan, as like the little girl who's like looking back at the camera as the house is burning. Like, it's that kind of energy where it's like the thing in the foreground and then like the doomy thing behind you is just staring you in the face. It just really, like, all of it worked. It also just speaks, I think, to how, like, I think what I really like about that and just the fact that those exist is it speaks to just how absurd Cailtin Clark is. Because when one of the best things about watching basketball, I think, is that we get to see the players' faces. We get to see how they react a lot of the time. And when you get a real human reaction, whether it's someone defending Cailtin Clark, it is someone watching Victor Wembanyama do something, LeBron do something, the any game winner you see. I think of how Luka reacted on the Kyrie skyhook from a couple weeks ago. Those are like some of the coolest moments because there's no chance to put up put a mask on and like mask how you're feeling. It is just like raw emotion. And in this moment, you got these two moments of clear, just like you're almost just like shrugging your shoulders and giving up that there's anything you can do about this. It's unbelievable.
That's why I was going to pick, honestly, Zag from the two options you provided and go with C, which is Kim Mulkey. It wasn't an in-the-moment photograph or video of it, but what she told the media she said to Cailtin post-game of, I'm glad you're leaving, there's no answer for you, is even better. That's just kind of like, that would be the caption to the videos and pictures we got of the memes that you mentioned. And if the coach is saying that, I feel like it's letting the players off the hook to a degree and just sort of acknowledging the reality, which is there's not a lot of hope when somebody's pulling up from 28, 30, 32 feet and just bombing threes. What do you do? Grow? Get taller at halftime? Other than that, I don't think you have much of a shot.
Coming up on today's show, we're getting into three teams that could be Western Conference wildcards: the Suns, the Mavericks, and the Lakers, question mark. We're getting into the NCAA Women's Tourney. Burning questions heading into the Final Four. That's all coming up today.
Spectacular move by Michael Jordan. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Welcome into the Just Basketball Show. I'm Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen, our third co-host. Noted Miami Hurricanes football fan Wes Goldberg is off today. He'll be back later this week as we do our third episode coming out on Friday.
Already taking a day off.
We have. I like to think, Brendan, that we have
Taking a vacation
generous,
week 1.
Yeah, we have a generous PTO policy, but Wes also just came in honestly, Wes threw a lot of energy at us day one. That was welcome, but also took us to places I really wasn't expecting to go.
Yeah, I don't have any cast member of the Pat McAfee show impression ready for you. I know he kind of wants us to model ourselves that way. I'm all for it. I'm going to need a little more time.
Also, just whenever Pat McAfee's supplement rotation is, I'm gonna need that. That's what I need. I need the TKO group money to fund my supplements is really what I want to know. So Wes will be back later this week. If you missed the news, Wes Goldberg of The Ringer, of Real GM, of Locked On Heat, a lot of other great outlets, is joining the Just Basketball Show as our third co-host, and we're also expanding to 3 days a week. So if you haven't already, please subscribe, please rate, please review on your podcast app platform of choice. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all your favorite social media platforms. More Just Basketball content, more game reactions, more everything as we go to 3 days a week and bring in Wes to the squad. I want to tell you, though, about our friends at Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is a player prop DFS platform where you can pick more or less on your favorite players across multiple sports, including the NBA and the NFL. Sign up today with our code JustBasketball, and Thrive will match your first deposit up to $250. Brendan, West Wildcards is where we are going to start today. We got 3 teams. The Phoenix Suns, where Devin Booker just went for 52 points as they beat the New Orleans Pelicans, a team I think are very high on here. The Dallas Mavericks, winners of 7 straight, and Luka Doncic just playing at an insane level, maybe the best basketball he has ever played. And the Los Angeles Lakers, a team no one ever talks about. And LeBron James, a player no one ever talks about, sniffing the 7-8 range, maybe pushing higher if things work right for them, and LeBron continuing to do absurd things at his advanced age. Brendan, I'll give you the choice. Which one of these 3 do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's talk about Suns Pelicans, because I was actually thinking of this as 4 teams. I think New Orleans is a pretty big wild card as well.
Okay.
They may not be
Yeah.
low down in the standings the way that you would think of, the Lakers fighting from moving to 9-7 or 9-6, the Suns scratching and clawing, the Mavs making a push. But I think New Orleans might be the most wild card we have here. So this game, I think, encapsulated a lot of what makes both teams makes you want to pull your hair out about both teams, honestly. The Suns, after 3 straight weekends of embarrassing losses to teams without their best player, they get blown out by the Thunder on the road, sure, but okay, it's still without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They follow that up with this wire-to-wire win over New Orleans with Booker, who had been in a huge cold streak, suddenly just scoring 50-plus points. Sure, okay, we'll take that. And then on the Pelicans side, I want to actually, with that team, might be the best place to start because it's been something on my mind since Shane Young of Forbes joined me last week to break down who did they play? Clippers? They played the Clippers? We talked about a game, and I asked him, it was the Bucks. I asked him about their balance on offense, if it was a good or a bad thing. He said, as we rounded out that segment, Chris, the Pelicans' offense, I'm not worried about at all. It's the other end that I think they need to sort some things out. And I don't think I feel good about either end. I don't feel rock solid about either end of the court. And the first half of this game is a perfect encapsulation of why. Zion is basically in year 1 of being a number 1 offensive engine on a good team. And he plays like a guy who is in year 1 of that feeling out process. Yes, Ingram has been out, but he went 3 of 8 in the first half from the field in this game. And I just still have significant concerns about what plans B, C, D, E are going to be offensively if Zion beat your man and get to the basket doesn't work.
I've been wondering, Brendan, what this team would look like if they just had an actual point guard at times, right? I understand there is something that is working for them, and with the Zion stuff that you're talking about, that I think oftentimes has worked for them, in that they're unorthodox and weird, and it's kind of hard to game plan for. You know, like you can't exactly game plan for what Zion is and what he can do and the other ways they can attack you. But it feels like at times in games where it's not clicking, where they just miss someone to just be like Mike Conley, right? Like they don't need an all-star point guard. They don't need a superstar scoring guard. They need something kind of old school and traditional, you know? Like I
actually would say they do need like whatever a higher powered scoring version of a more modern point guard is, because I can appreciate, and we can all, you know, admire the clips that the smart X's and O's people on NBA Twitter or NBA Reddit post every night and be like, wow, they really schemed up a great way to get Zion open in space. They got a mismatch by running these screens. This guy was the ball handler so that this switch happened, and then they attacked it this way, or they went to Nance at the right time, and that got the rim protector away from the basket. I love it all. I'm happy about all of it. But at the end of the day, it is still a matter of, can Zion get within the distance of the basket that he is comfortable taking shots from? You know what I mean? And it kind of is their one thing. They're a great three-point shooting team. They can play fast. They have all these other ingredients. But when we're talking about the playoffs, I actually do feel like if you were to partner up Zion with somebody like, I don't know, what's the best version of not a Mike Conley, but like a scoring version of that guy?
I mean, I think
De'Aaron Fox. Something like that.
I think Fox is a good answer. The other name I went to that kind of clicks in my head is like a younger version of that is, I think, would give you the sound decision making, which I probably value a little bit more than you, I think. While also theoretically giving you some of the shooting, would be like a Darius Garland type, where it's a guy who can run your shit, get you moving. Maybe a different environment coaxes some. Maybe like the what other dude brings something else out of him. And he also can give you shooting and give you spacing and give you some of that. Because, like, I think I would want to not – like, if you were to say drop, like, Damian Lillard onto this team, I almost wonder if that swings – like, as much as you say Damian Lillard is great and all that stuff, that almost, like, maybe swings the pendulum a little too far the other way for me, where it kind of, like, changes kind of some of the identity that works here. I would want kind of, like, the middle ground of that. And you either skew maybe more towards – like, Fox would be more of, like, I think the scoring – kind of 3-level thing, and then someone like a Garland is, I think, probably more in the Mike Conley vein, where like if you
even a version of what we're talking about that we've seen work. I mean, it's impossible to imagine now because there's some other stuff that has sidetracked his career, namely injuries. But Zion and Lonzo had amazing chemistry.
Yeah,
right?
Lonzo, like a healthy Lonzo. Maybe that's the perfect answer. It's like a guy who can play on and off ball, who can space, who is big. Because like the other part of this team is just, even if like McCollum's not like maybe the best example of this, but he at least is like thicker. They skew big, and if you put a big kind of combo hybrid guard in that sense that could accentuate the size you already play with, that in itself would be really cool. The thing I'm also curious to see, Brendan, how this plays out.
Yeah,
is not even just in this playoff run that we're about to see, which I think will tell us something. But I think with what we're getting at here, what does this set up for next year when over the summer teams are refreshing their scouting reports, coming up with new baselines of teams, have a chance to just like crush the film and have some time to think about it? And then how does this adjust a year from now? And then where does that hit? And then what does David Griffin, who is the big thing we've kind of heard them link to the last couple of years has always been, okay, let's get a different center. Like they've had a lot of Jared Allen interest reportedly, trying to upgrade the Valanciunas spot. Does what he is chasing, does that change to say, I want a guard that we're in the vein we're talking about here? And what do they take away from all of this?
Yeah, I think they're going to probably be looking to make any and all of those changes. I mean, we could see a different center and McCollum replaced, and maybe a little bit of a narrowing down of turning, wow, we have so many different players depth-wise to, okay, but who do we really want to build around? And I think that'll be a part of the question too. But if you were looking at them, they're now down to 6. We'll talk about Dallas in a second, who has overtaken them. Do you feel good about them against any of Oklahoma City, Denver, or Minnesota? Is there one of those matchups you like the most? Because I do still think it would be a disappointment for them to not at least be competitive in the first round, given that, yes, it's Zion's first year, but this is really, year 5, year 4, whatever you want to say, of trying to win with this core.
My head tells me I want to look at some. I'm going to pull up some numbers real quick and check myself here and check some of what my head is telling me, or my heart is telling me rather. I want to say Oklahoma City is the one. I think if I'm them, I feel okay with. Like I'm sorry, I'm not picking anyone to beat Denver. It's just where I'm at. Like Denver's not a good matchup.
And I don't think
anyone.
they match up great. Yeah.
No, and I know Phoenix beat them, but like, does anyone really match up well against Denver? Is just like a real question to me. I think of just. And again, it's simplistic to break it down this way, and I'm not trying to do that per se. But what I am thinking of is just, okay, does Zion getting in at Chet, and does the fact that this team, in terms of accuracy at the rim, like the Thunder, like they're best in the league at the rim. So regardless, but like, does that hold up in a playoff circumstance against a team that is going to be built to come at you downhill really hard, really aggressive? Like what does that look like against that team? Even if they have all the size, like J-Dub and other Jalen Williams and Lou Dort and Shea's big and like all that stuff, is there something in the what the rim protection is in that series that leaves an opportunity? Because I think if it's the Wolves as like the other team in this thought exercise, like driving at Rudy Gobert over and over again, even if you have the shooting to try to mess with them a little bit in theory, without the point guard to kind of dictate everything, I think that becomes a really hard exercise for them. It'd be almost like by game 7, they'd be like pushing the rock up the hill, I think, trying to get into their actions at a certain point.
Yeah, with the Wolves matchup, I'd be pretty fascinated to see what Willie Green and that coaching staff do to take advantage of Cat. Can they get him onto Zion? Where does Gobert hide? I think obviously Valanciunas, but then, is it Nance and he's playing off of him? Herb Jones is kind of a good option against Ant. That's the type of player I would like to put on Ant. Herb doesn't match up perfectly with everybody, as we can get to if we want to jump to the Suns here.
Yeah.
But that one would be fun. I think I'm probably going to pick against New Orleans no matter who they play is where I'm at. But I think, like you're saying, they are set up well for the future, and the fact that this core works, I think, might be the best thing. But they have to be competitive. Like, you don't want to be like, great, the best thing we can say about our season is our 2 best guys finally saw the court together. It's like, well, that doesn't really count for much at the end of the day. But this Suns team, I'm going to let my thoughts be summed up by Steve Jones Jr., who does the Dunker Spot podcast and is a podcast guest extraordinaire across the basketball internet, Chris, which is, I don't trust them whatsoever. They are very likely to lay a complete egg in the play-in or just look hapless on the road in a big playoff game if they make it that far. And yet, if I'm in any opposing coaching staff or team facility of any kind, I do not want to see the Suns. And I don't think there's much of anything that can happen the rest of the way that will make me more or less excited about the Suns. Even though they have a crazy schedule, and if they tally up some big wins, obviously we'll all be impressed with that. But the high highs and low lows have me just feeling like I kind of just want to shrug. We'll see what the matchups look like, but Booker could score 50 again, and okay, keep it moving.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I took a screenshot of it or not, because it made me chuckle, but no, I didn't, unfortunately. But I was flipping through Instagram on Tuesday during a break of the day, and there was a tweet. Someone had a comment on like a Booker 52-point game post that was like, this team either looks like the NBA championship contenders, they look like the Detroit Pistons, and there's no in between. And that made me laugh because like, kind of accurate at times, it feels like. There's just like never just like a normal Phoenix Suns night. Brendan, I think why if the Steve Jones thing I think hits is because the construction of this team from the outset has been kind of just based in hoopers. Like, and I don't mean that even negatively. It's just like they have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. It's like,
is that a nice way of saying they're soft?
No, it's like in praise of the fact that team is just like 2 guys who are professional scorers in like in a way that they can just like if you told me that there was just a run of games where they both were averaging like 35, I'd be like, yeah, it just has never like
AKA
happened.
the second round last year, right? I mean, that's pretty much what happened.
Right, and it's like if you said that, you can't really game plan for that. Like we can talk all day about game planning and good matchups for these teams. And sometimes like it really does just like these elite scorers just kind of ruin your game plans and send you home pissed off and sad and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, okay, like that just happens sometimes. There's something you can do. The Devin Booker game against New Orleans was like kind of that. Like, yeah, he had 52 and only 6 of them came from the free throw line. He was 8 of 16 from 3. This guy was just making shots. Like, and at a certain point, and plus the 9 assists. And at a certain point, it's just like you can't get like you can game plan all of Booker's tendencies. There's just nights where like he's capable of this. The question is, like, is it enough? Like, can you get it like 7 times? I don't know.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, there's elements that you can get yourself excited about, right? Like Beal's development and sacrifice as a defender has been a nice little stretch run.
Okay, can you
bonus for them
as someone who watches this team, Locked On Suns, check it out. Talk us through Bradley Beal, what he is and what he's kind of evolved in as a defender. Talk us through it. Tell us what you're seeing.
It's just effort, man. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's why I framed it as sacrifice and everything else. Like, in this game, he takes the Zion matchup, and it's weird. You wouldn't expect that. They actually did that back in January, and it worked pretty well. So that was kind of actually the first hint at how they could use Beal, maybe Beal's willingness, the creativity, maybe why this matchup is going to be so good. They do play the Pelicans one more time next week as well. But yeah, I think it's some of the stuff where you would look at it and say, if they had the full season and they basically didn't have to start their season after Christmas the way that they did with Beal and Booker trading absences, that they could have maybe tracked sooner, tried different things sooner, got some reps and chemistry doing out-of-the-box stuff for more of the year. But the reality is they're not going to have that. So yeah, when I asked if you were calling them soft, I don't think that wasn't me getting insulted. That was me saying, I mean, that's kind of, I think, a valid criticism. I mean, we're headed toward year 4 of a lot of uncertainty and the very clear possibility that the floor just kind of falls out from underneath this team. But you mentioned nobody is built to beat Denver. Nobody could beat Denver. I actually think that's the one, maybe the best thing you could say about the Suns. And I don't think the 3 good performances and 2 wins they've had over Denver this year are a fluke. I don't think that was random. I don't think that was just catching them on the wrong night or whatever you would want to say. I actually do think the Suns built themselves to beat the Nuggets. They just, I think, failed to realize they weren't going to actually be good enough to only have to worry about the Nuggets. But if they were to get them, I actually think the Suns might be most confident in that matchup, as insane as that might sound to say about the defending champs. I think that they relish that matchup. I think they feel like they can beat them.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think that when I say like you can't like build a team to beat the Nuggets, it's more of just that the Nuggets just like kind of overcome everything. But this is kind of the thing. It's like we talked about, I think, this last year and talked about it in their season preview, I'm sure. It's like scorers who can attack Jokic in the middle of the floor and can overwhelm what Denver's defensive structure is. Even if Denver's a really good defending team, it's like tough shot makers against a team that doesn't exactly have, like, they have a lot of solid defenders, but no one that's like necessarily going to be on the all defensive team, right? Like, I don't think anyone on this team is necessarily in that. Like, no one you would say, yeah, go lock down Devin Booker. Like, that just doesn't exist here in the way that it theoretically does for some other teams.
And they have Nurkic, right? Who can kind of be the one-on-one guy, at least as an option there. They have Durant, Royce O'Neal, who are both options as either the primary on Nurkic in the other, or on Jokic in the other minutes, or a guy who can come over and help off of Gordon and kind of be that roamer. They have, some options against Murray, I guess is the best way I can put it, even if, again, not the best options. So, yeah, I think you have to kind of outscore the Nuggets and then hold up in these one-on-one moments defensively and just play hard, have, physicality and size and at key spots, and execute a game plan on defense and hope you can take away some of the easy stuff. But yeah, I think the Suns don't feel like a wild card to me because it's just as likely that they just kind of fall apart as that they shock us and do some big upset, I guess is how I would put it. But I do buy the Dallas Mavericks, Chris. I think that they are coming on in the way that they did 2 years ago, in a way that I personally have some PTSD about.
Fair. I want to just say one thing, kind of big picture about all four of these teams that I feel like we should have brought up at the beginning. Part of the reason I think there is starting to be an opening at this part of the conference is because I do think if Malik Monk is going to just be out and maybe not come back, I just don't think the Kings are not the Kings anymore. Like, that team just doesn't have the juice in the play-in.
I guess I wasn't taking the Kings seriously with Monk. I feel like I would have picked against the Kings in the play-in. I would have picked against them in the first round. So maybe Monk changed your mind, not so much me. I mean, did you buy Sacramento before?
I'm not saying it fully changed my mind, but if you're going to say this could have been more competitive or it was like a tighter race, now it's just like, okay, this team's DOA. And before, you could have said they caught hot for a game and like beat one of these teams in the play-in. I'd be like, sure. You know what I mean? Like anything in a play-in could happen in one game, but now their like chaos bench score guy is gone, and it's just like, okay. Like, he's a key part of their identity, and he's just off the board. And like no other team is really dealing with an injury quite like that right now, you know?
I mean, to me, it's just the top of the West has been young and unproven the whole season with Oklahoma City and Minnesota, and everybody's mostly healthy. So it should be wide open, right? Theoretically, it should be possible that, Dallas made it through the season with a healthy Kyrie and made some improvements, and the Suns finally have their three guys locked in for, a couple months at a time now, and Ingram's out, but that duo has been able to stay on the court. The old guys in LA and Golden State are healthy. That's why I think this could be an awesome playoffs and really is anybody's game. Is there's not an obvious weak link, and the very top is very uncertain just because we've never seen them do it.
Dallas, tell me what is working for you at Dallas right now. Tell me what is speaking to you about what this team is right now.
It just feels a lot like it did 2 years ago. In 2022, the Mavs came on hot toward the stretch run of the season. They finish, I think people forget, they had 50 wins that year. That wasn't just a hot playoff run. They really proved something after coincidentally getting rid of Porzingis, even though he's had it's kind of a win-win on both ends of that, but it unlocked them just not funneling stuff toward this other guy anymore and just letting it be Luka and, some 3-and-D players. Spencer Dinwiddie got hot as hell. They found something with Bullock and Finney-Smith, and, Powell and Kleba were healthier, younger versions of themselves back then. This year, that might be, more of the Gafford, Lively, PJ Washington trio, and those wings are going to be different guys than they were back then, but the general structure with Kyrie kind of a better version of what Brunson was back then, and this athletic wing group and some bigs that play well and, kind of own the aspects of the game they need to as rim protectors and rebounders and finishers. It's just a team that makes sense, and we've really always just sort of only been asking for that with Luka. It's not like we've been saying you need to get a big three around Luka and, get Eric Spoelstra over there and, hire Sam Presti and all these impossible things. It's like, can you just get competence around the dude? He tends to do pretty well when you're able to get there. And to me, he's just kind of proving that again. And that's why I take him very seriously. To me, it's like, why wouldn't you? It's all right there.
MVP odds right now. Nikola Jokic at BetMGM is minus 700. It feels like he's going to win MVP. Luka Doncic is now second. SGA was, I believe, second for a long time in these odds. Luka is now second at plus 550. SGA is third at plus 2,000. Luka is second in odds. And, you texted me this the other day, so I want to give you credit for this, Brendan. I think there would have been a bigger push for him if this had started like 5 games earlier, 2 weeks earlier, like something like that, where there's just a little more time to build, and maybe there's just like less other sports stuff going on. Because like frankly, this is like a point in the NBA season which they kind of get overwhelmed by March Madness on for both men and women. Baseball season is starting. Like the NBA season gets like a little kind of overwhelmed at this point and kind of struggles to like push through at certain points, right?
Yeah,
And
there's not even any national TV games, right? It's ugly out here.
I believe Cavs Suns, the Chris Manning Brendon Kleen Bowl is a nationally televised game on Wednesday.
It is. Sorry, my bad.
No one should. I'm gonna just advise people in the East Coast to like maybe don't stay up till 12:30 to finish that one. Is my guess. Not great stuff for Cleveland right now. Luka is putting himself, just the way he's playing, the control he has over the game, the energy he's playing with. I think just what him and Kyrie and what he's getting out of that partnership, he's making the case for himself to be an MVP this year and be like the front runner a year from now. He's putting himself in consideration to be in the best players on earth right now. I think I would have him third right now. I think it would be Jokic 1, Giannis 2, and Luka 3. And if you told me in 6 months that I had Luka 2, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'm totally there with that, because I think he's that good. The question I asked the other day, Brendan, where I was a little bit skeptical about, can a team kind of build solely around one guy kind of go on this run? I think just as I thought about it more and kind of processed what you and Wes said back to me and all of that, and frankly just went and like watched some more Luka in conjunction with the talent they have, where it just, as you said, makes sense, can absolutely talk myself into it. And I think the playoffs are just also shaping up in a way where there's going to be an opportunity for them. If you look at right now, their playoffstatus.com has them as like very likely the 5 seed. Clippers very likely the 4 seed. It's a series we've seen versions of before. I think I might like, I don't want to tip my hand too early or like make that pick now. The way things are going and what, like, Luka's not going to be fazed by that series or any series really, but he's seen that before. He's going to be comfortable in it. Wouldn't shock me if like he's able to knock off the Clippers in round 1. Like, he's playing at that level and that this team is humming in a certain way.
I also think Kyrie would have a pretty monster series. If you ask me who guards Kyrie Irving, I mean, obviously Terrence Mann is the obvious place you go, but it's Kyrie Irving. I mean, I don't think Terrence Mann, and not a lot of great help defense right now, and not a great rim protector and shooters around that. You know, okay, good luck, Terrence, is probably what I would respond with. I think Dallas has not only an identity, I think it will be important for them to figure out exactly who their guys are, because it's, you know, similar to what we were discussing with the Pelicans a bit, where, okay, you have these options, but what are your go-to what do you like? What's your, in this moment we do this, against this type of team we do that. I don't know if Dallas is fully there, but hey, you'll take a 7-game win streak while you figure that out. They can play super tiny, where the PJ Washington, Maxi Kleba front court with both of the centers off is plus 17 per 100 possessions in 140 minutes, or they can go jumbo, where Gafford and PJ Washington out there together, or Lively and PJ Washington are both varying degrees of positive. And if they can get even 2 of these wings to click, including my X factor that kind of wasn't real but is, Dante Exum, then I just think they're clicking. You counter that with the Clippers, where, I mean, I think some of the concerns are overblown, but I think their center rotation is a real problem. I think their depth overall is almost non-existent, and they're trending in the other direction. So the fact that Dallas is even in play for a 4-5 is crazy. We all thought it was going to be Pelicans-Clippers with a bullet like 2 weeks ago. We never even felt like Dallas was going to have anything to say here, and all of a sudden it's now the most likely thing. So, I mean, that speaks for itself. 7-game win streak, and could end up with, 50 wins again and really mirror that 2022 year. But Lakers, you said you had a Lakers take for me.
I just want to put this on the record, in part because this is going to be a graphic, Brendan. Clippers Mavericks feels like the best first-round series in either conference.
It's a little too early for me to jump in there with you, but I like it.
I just am like, I've been looking, as I'm want to do, trying to figure out like what we're going to get in the East. Yeah. Like, maybe like Bucks Heat is the answer, because that is just like, there's just, it's just like watching like a horror movie. There's a lot of potential for murder and pain, but there's not a lot of other series over there. It's like Knicks Magic in the 4-5.
I need to see what Joel Embiid looks like before I write off the Eastern Conference playoff bracket, and before I co-sign anything related to him not being on your little list of best players over there that I very notably realized did not have Mr. Embiid on it.
No, honestly,
even when you started to extend it out to 4 or 5, I still didn't hear his name there, Chris. So that's why I didn't jump on with you.
Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Luka. That's my 4. But you could talk me into Luka as like 3. I'm revising my list as we go.
Right, but Joe is always this kind of like floating thing on a list like that, because depending on when you ask and what his health situation is, you could feel very differently. So I don't blame you, but I guess that's what I'm saying is we now are on the clock for T-minus 2 weeks or 7 or 8 games to see what the hell is going on with that guy, and then probably be able to make some more certain things about this Eastern Conference bracket. But now I'm going to back off.
Lakers, number 1 player in my heart always, LeBron James. LeBron James against the Brooklyn Nets, who stink. Like, just to be clear, they stink, and that organization just stinks. It's bad.
I had a moment the other day where I remembered Jacques Vaughn wasn't the coach anymore. Like, I knew, but I was like, oh shit, yeah, they don't have a coach, or they do. I think they're just going to probably hire Kevin Ollie, would be my guess, because everybody seems to love him in basketball. But yes,
but
beating Brooklyn by itself, not an accomplishment.
They did this with Jacques Vaughn, though. That's what they did with Jacques Vaughn. It's like, well, we got Jacques Vaughn.
Sure.
Like, you did this before.
No,
like,
that's not the reason for all of this. It was just separate. I was like, oh yeah, damn, they did that.
Yeah, weird year. Ben Simmons on the team. Remember him? So here's my Lakers take. There is a world, and I think a pretty plausible one, where LeBron James and Anthony Davis are both on All-NBA teams. 2 top 15 guys in the league who had 2 top 15 seasons in the league. And yet this team is going to be in the play-in because nothing else has quite worked, or the supporting cast isn't good enough, or whatever it is. They're a slog to watch a lot of the time, and they're still like insanely relying on those 2 guys just being special on a night-to-night basis. AD in particular, I think, has been amazing this year, and having kind of an under-talked-about season, which is wild because he plays for the Lakers. But it's very possible that this team has like 2 All-NBA top 15 season guys going into the playoffs, and something is clicking in the right direction, and that makes them scary to me. Even if I don't trust it, I wouldn't. If they end up like being the 8th seed out of the play-in and they play Denver, I'm picking Denver in like 5. That's just what I'm gonna do. But they're scary because of those 2 guys, and particularly just LeBron. God, this guy, man, 40 points against the Nets, 9 threes, ties a career high. He looks healthy and good and like ready to rock. That guy still, if I'm seeing him in the playoffs, scares the shit out of me. And ADA is like playing at an all-defense player of the year level, and has been really healthy all year, and is having a good offensive season. Like, those 2 guys would be a pain in the ass to game plan for, even if their style's not great, even if I don't necessarily think there's any micro stuff that has really evolved with them. It's really those 2 guys, and you hope D'Lo is like good enough from 3. But LeBron plus AD as like the 7th seed would scare me if I'm the 2 seed. Like, I want Lakers Thunder, if I'm being honest. Like, I kind of want to see it.
Yeah, the starting 5 now with Rui in there and Reeves in there is plus 5.3 per 100 possessions in over 300 minutes. I mean, I think you feel good about that. The defense especially, 114.5. That's a solid starting point. I just look at, even compared to last year, right, where, you go down the stretch of even let's use the Warriors series, which was more competitive. Just the contributions they were able to get from a Jared Vanderbilt and Dennis Schroeder. I mean, even Rui, which built over the course of the playoffs. I just look at their depth right now, and they beat that Nets team. That starting lineup plays almost 35 minutes plus a piece. They get 2 bench points. I know it was Gabe Vincent's first game back, but the Taurean Prince thing has not worked. Spencer Dinwiddie is just as streaky as a Laker as he has been outside of that 1/2 season we've now referenced multiple times with Dallas. And they haven't been able to figure out if Max Christie or Cam Reddish or Jackson Hayes. It's like, it's a miracle that LeBron and AD are both going to be eligible for all NBA teams because they both have now played 65-plus games. AD's played 70 games, and they have 7 left. He could get to 77 games played, and that's like a complete upset. But that's why they aren't, I think, considered at a higher level as a contender. It's like they really only have those 5 guys, and you already mentioned Russell. How trustworthy is that? The defensive end is always going to be a problem. So, you're talking about 3.5 guys, and that's why. I mean, that's really what it boils down to for me, even if there's a lot of good indicators. So I don't want to play them at home. I don't want to play them in an elimination game. I get all those things, but at the end of the day, Denver swept them last year, and I think you get to the upper echelons of the conference, and that's probably what you'll see again.
Yeah, if AD gets to 77 games, that would be the most games he's ever played in his career.
I don't get it.
If he gets to 70, he can miss one game and still beat it. And he's played the last time he played above 70 games was back when he was 24. He still played for the Pelicans. He's never played more than 62 games with the Lakers.
Great. I mean, I love watching Anthony Davis. I'm ready for it, but it's an upset.
No, yeah. Yeah,
to be fair, that 62-game season was also the one that was cut off. So he played 62 of 72.
Which good for him. That's really, really good. The other thing what I would say, the last thing on the Lakers here before we get to the women's Final Four. If this is ever going to work, it's going to look like a souped-up version of like the LeBron 2018 Cavs thing, where it's just an absolute slog every night, and he's like just doing very specific things against opponents and dictating the pace. What I want to see out of that is I think they get out of the play-in. Like I just think they will. Like LeBron's gonna.
Yeah, I probably do too.
The team I want to see that against, I said it before, is the Thunder. Like, I don't know if that's exactly where we're headed. I wonder if there's, like, the playoffstatus.com has the Thunder as, like, the most likely 1 seed in the West as of right now. You don't really want to, like, chance losing in the play-in to, like, avoid Denver, Like, you kind of would just, like, rather win and, like, figure it out and get there and not overthink this,
You're sounding like Mike Greenberg here, tanking games in the postseason. Not going to happen.
No, I'm saying you can't do that. Like, you can't.
Yeah, but even mentioning it, of course you can't do it.
Okay, I'm just record, Brendan. The team I would want to, like, if I'm them, I would be like, this is how I can work myself. This, like, I could see it working, at least for, like, a game or two and extending it to, like, a 6-game series. It's the Thunder. I think the Wolves, like, to their credit, defensively just, like, stamp that out, and then the Nuggets are the Nuggets. Like, that doesn't work against them.
Yeah, I think I'm at the point now where I would just favor the Thunder, too, at this point. Like, the thing that are the two things that I feel like are the differences between those versions of previous LeBron-led teams, Chris, are one, yes, okay, the defensive ceiling is probably higher because of AD's presence, but they don't have the collective shooting. They're 29th in three-point frequency. They're top 5 to 10 in accuracy, but they just don't have the snipers out there to space the floor and really have the offense at the highest possible level that it would need to be at. And 2, the league is just better. There was no Thunder back then. Obviously he was in the East, which was nice, helped him out a lot. But just anywhere you look, even if he was still in the East, like the Pacers would scare me. The Magic would scare me. I just think the league is at a different point where that type of incredibly top-heavy build, even for a player as great as LeBron, I don't think it would be possible. I mean, we still say with the Nuggets, right? If one of their ingredients were to get hurt, that would be enough for us to question if Denver could pull it off again. And it still doesn't feel, at least to me, quite as insurmountable as the LeBron Cavs did. So I just think we're at a different point, and that type of pathway I don't see. But
LeBron just being like,
it's also LeBron, and you could play this when he scores 50 in a game 7 in like 2 weeks, and I'll sound like an idiot. And I'm fully, ready for that too.
I will be absolutely delighted. He's also just older, and like at some point, like
he's probably not capable of 58 and 8 or whatever in the game 1 of the 2018 finals, right? I don't think he could do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even like the sustained effort it would take to like drag all that is just harder when you're out of the plane and harder when you're older. So it's all.
Even that game 4 against Denver last year, it was really like a huge first half that he had, remember? And then it was kind of like, we're losing the series. I just kind of wanted to show everybody I could still do that, but I'm not actually going to win this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This team just needs like one more shooter on this team. I could like I could work myself into just like being a little more excited, but yeah, it's tough. All right, up next, women's Final Four. I want to tell you about our friends at Homage, though. Homage is the ultra comfortable specialty apparel brand with NBA and WNBA licenses. That uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Brendan just stepped away, but when he comes back, he's going to show you his Jimmy Butler t-shirt, which is, we're in playoff Jimmy season. That is one of our greatest traditions. It's playoff Jimmy Butler. Hoping we get it again this year. Use the link below to make your purchase.
Cowboys also. Great tradition.
Right. That's right. Did you see Josh Hart's quote about Jimmy Butler? Yeah. Did you see Josh Hart talking about Jimmy like doing side quests? Josh Hart, a great quote.
No.
He had a whole thing where he's like, Jimmy does all these side quests, and then he comes back, and he's dangerous, and he rounds into form. And it was like in reference
to put it.
Yeah, Josh Hart, perpetually a very, very funny quote. I enjoy Josh Hart. So use our link below, make your purchase, and support the Just Basketball Show. All right, NCAA Women's Tournament burning questions. We've got 4 of them. Brendan, number 1, let's start with Cailtin Clark, and let's also talk about Paige Bueckers. Would Paige versus Cailtin have been a bigger debate than we thought if they both came out this year? I'm going to answer this first and just say no, because I think Cailtin Clark doesn't have the injury history. She is also just transcendent as a star in an insane way. It's the Indiana Fever hyping up the fact that they're the number 1 pick, and obviously they can't like say we're taking Cailtin Clark, but like their GM in that video the other day looking like a grandma like at a soccer game getting hyped up about number 1 is just some of the best shit I've ever seen. More of that. We need more like normal human looking people in sports, and like that felt awesome.
She just had to say number 1 because they don't want to use Caitlin's name or whatever.
Yeah, and just like she
also,
looks like.
Why can't they? I don't really get. Is there like a rule here that I'm missing, or is it just respect? She hasn't declared, right? So
yeah. No, she declared.
Like she hasn't. She said it, but you literally have to file. I don't know. But yeah, I'm actually going to need you. If there was a question in there, I'm going to need you to repeat it, because as soon as you started talking about Cailtin Clark, I happened to see in my Slack channel of my day job that the viewership came in for the game on Monday night, Chris, and it was the most watched women's college basketball game ever by wide margin. 12.3 million people watched this, which was more than any NBA Finals game last year outside of the deciding Game 5.
Yeah. There's a conversation.
I mean, we expected it to be huge, but holy shit.
She's a superstar. So the question is, would Paige versus Cailtin have been a bigger debate than we thought if they both came out for this year's draft? The answer is no. But I want to circle back to one of my best takes. I don't have a lot of good takes. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I think back what I said, and I'm like, was that great? The answer's often no. I like being wrong is part of doing this job. But I had a take that we were going to be reminded that Paige Bueckers is also great and is a generational talent and all of that stuff. I think we've been reminded of that. So even if I don't think it would have been a debate, I do think if you had said this is now the clear-cut number 2 in this draft and she's going to go to the LA Sparks, had she declared, and then it becomes
she already was that though, right?
Yeah, but I just feel like in terms of like how we're viewing her, how she has performed, the reputation, Gino getting involved and having the quotes of like, this is the best player in the country, supporting his player, all that stuff. The mystique around Cailtin and her personality, I think, coming through more than it did 2 months ago. I do think like her star status has been raised in a way it wasn't at a month ago. Like your Q rating, if that's still a phrase we can
let me
use.
ask you this. As far as your answer to the prompt here of if Paige had stayed in this year's draft rather than deciding to come back, would it have been more of a debate as the tournament went along, especially leading up to and after them playing each other, which is now what we have?
Oh.
Do you say that it wouldn't have been because of just the narrative around Cailtin, or because of what your personal view is about the two of them as talents, because those
I
are
think it's-
different, right? I think, and even like you could say, okay, Indiana's closer to Iowa than LA. I mean, you could do all the nonsense, but I mean, Paige is from Minnesota, which is, not that different really. But what is it coming down to for you?
I mean, I think it's both. I think it's both that Cailtin is clearly just game breaking on every level and game breaking in every capacity, and we've seen it for just a longer duration. So I just have that. And secondly, I do just think the cart, like she had a massive lead that like she was never going to be able to surrender. Like she started out as just like an overwhelming.
Isn't that just because of injuries though?
But I think it's all. But I
Because
don't.
they played each other in 2021. Is I think right? Their freshman years, I think, is when they played each other. And we did not say that then. And then Paige just got hurt a bunch of times. She also went to the Final Four in between while Cailtin went home early. I'll just come out and say what I think I'm obviously leading toward. I think Paige is going to be a better player in the WNBA than Cailtin Clark is.
Okay, can we do this as a quote graphic? Can we do that?
Yeah, that's this. See, I think that's why I kind of wanted you to clarify. I think that you're a little bit, Kool-Aid prisoner of the moment here. I don't think that my take is as hot as you're making it sound. I think it would have been a much more legit debate, and I think that there is something about the aura of Cailtin, the revolutionary aspects of what she's doing at the college level in the women's game that we've never seen, the breaking of the scoring record, the fact that her teammates are not as good helps kind of build up the holy shit of it all. But that doesn't mean that when we get to the draft and you're a GM whose job is on the line and they're both going to be great. Your job's not on the line, but you want to nail the pick and you want to build your team and you want to scout and evaluate them as talents. I think it's much closer than you're giving it credit for.
No, I want to clarify. I think it's like closer than I'm probably giving it credit for. I just also think we're at a point with this where I just think there was never a way this was changing at a certain point. And I don't want to say that in as a way to like dismiss Paige as her as like a superstar and what she's capable of and all of that, because like she was the bigger prospect coming into college. It wasn't close of like who was the bigger deal at that point. It has just shifted for a variety of reasons. I also just think the revolutionary aspects of the way Cailtin plays is just kind of hard to look away from. I just do. Like, I think that is whereas Paige, I think, is going to do things differently in her own way. I think we have seen molds of what she is to some degree. I don't think we have ever seen anything like Cailtin Clark, where I think she can, like, restructure the way the game is played to a certain degree. And that is just really enticing to me if I'm building a team from day one. If you're saying I get that, and she can absolutely just rip a defense apart and rip the way we think of how guards play in the W apart, and Paige can do that in her own way, but it's like less scaled up and less drastic. I'm probably just going to skew more towards the drastic part of it. To be clear, you get either one of these players, and I think like you could put other, like Cameron Brink, I'd be thrilled to get as well, not maybe to the same degree. But, like, you're very happy. And whoever gets, like, if there's a tank for the next year's WNBA draft to get Paige, I'd be like, yeah, hell yeah. Like, that makes sense to me.
So that's the question, right? Maybe a good way to cap. Because it's all just, sports bar nonsense debating. It doesn't really matter. If they were to both have been in this draft and they went 1-2, they probably both would have been candidates to be all-stars and everything. And Paige will get there. We'll have another year to see what she can do at UConn. Although I do have a little bit of a what happens if they actually were to pull this off. Does she still go back? I don't know. But because there's nothing, she could just say, "Oh, I changed my mind." Like, she just kind of said it in the media. It's not real yet.
Well, she didn't even say it in the media. Really, it was like at senior day. It was like she just kind of like made a proclamation.
So let's say that she does go back. Let's say Cailtin also went back. And Paige got a fully healthy season with the Huskies, and Azzi Fudd and some of their other, Aubrey Griffin and their other heralded prospects are healthy, and they're just, maybe they're undefeated for all we know. And Cailtin stays and has another amazing season, very similar to what she did this year. What would you say then? Would there have been any chance for Paige to get there given another season of working toward it, or do you just think it's so insurmountable? Because I don't know. I just have a hard time finding a hole in Paige's game, and like I guess a comp would be right. Like Luka went third over Trey. Does that feel similar?
I think it's just a little different.
Trae Young was the 5th overall pick after taking the whole fucking country by storm in college basketball. Right?
No, okay, yeah, no, I misheard, kind of understood what you're saying for a second because my brain's a goop right now. No,
Trae went after Luka, even though Trae had a season that just we all thought he was the future of everything.
Yeah, I just think anyone who actually like looked at Trae Young didn't actually think that because he's small and like there's some differences there between, there's a little bit.
I didn't sell you. It's fine. I don't have to sell you, but I think Paige will be, when it is all said and done, as we watch their careers, at least an equal to Cailtin in terms of winning, in terms of production, and everything else. Maybe production is unfair, right? Maybe we'll never see somebody. I mean, Cailtin just scored 32 points per game. Paige is at 22. Maybe that never equalizes, but I think in terms of impact and winning and just greatness, however we kind of qualify that and know it when we see it, I think it'll be pretty damn close when it's all said and done. But the more pressing question, Chris, is who wins this weekend? First thoughts.
I'm going Iowa. I'm just riding the vibes. I mean, do I feel good about the only thing I feel confident about is that South Carolina is like probably winning their game. I just also need to point out I googled 2025 WNBA mock draft real quick. The mock I looked at, which is like maybe the only one on the internet right now, has Anissa Morrow going number 1 over Paige Bueckers. That's Paige Bueckers health provided is going number 1.
Paige just has to be more specific, and I will say I'll just pick UConn. What do we want to bet here?
The first 2 Modelos next time we see each other in person.
Okay.
Well, we're assigning West, just to be clear. We're assigning West NC State because he's not here. And then when they get eliminated and let's say South Carolina wins, West by default has to buy us the Modelos because he picked NC State.
Okay. Perfect. So he's watching. Where is he today? Heat Sixers.
Heat Knicks.
And, Heat Knicks. So he'll find out afterward. Yeah. I think I'll just say as far as this game goes, Aaliyah Edwards has been playing her absolute ass off, and I think she is very likely to be the 3rd best player in this game by a pretty wide margin, and that will matter a lot from just the standpoint of winning on Friday. But as far as Paige goes, to be more specific rather than just kind of arguing, I think Paige's feel in the half court, her 3-level scoring ability, I would say her footwork, her fluidity as an athlete, those things are all better. I think she's a significantly more cerebral and just overall impactful defender. I think she's committed herself to that end of the floor a lot more. I mean, she's smaller. There's no real physical reason she should be better. It's just, she just does it. She gets it done. She racks up forced turnovers like it's nothing. I mean, you look at the box score, it's like at least 2 each of blocks and steals throughout this entire tournament, it feels like. And she can also pull up from 3. She can also score. She can also pass in the open court. There's a lot of similarities to their game, but then Paige has another element beyond that. And yeah, Caitlin's range and her size is a little better, but
the defense, the Paige might being the better defensive player is, I think, if you wanted to make that thing, it's like that's where I could see
Will.
Yeah, okay, Will. Like that's where it's like, are you just is that like a problem for Cailtin where she like just isn't good enough, like is less of a 2-way player, and that gives Paige an advantage.
She'll have to figure it out, right? I mean, it's kind of like what we saw with Diana Taurasi and whatnot. There are Luka to keep using that comp. Like, well, I mean, a lot of great players suck on defense, but you got to at least kind of get the job done or end up on a team that can make up for it.
Steph's kind of the one that I think of. I mean, it's all, which makes it interesting. It's like she's going to pair with Aaliyah Boston and Indiana. It's like if there's ever like a chance where you could take 5% of what she dods and then she could put more effort on defense, maybe that results in something different that Iowa just can't offer. All right, let's go to the next question. Let's go to Angel Reese, just kind of to hit on the other half of this LSU Iowa game. Unfortunate for her that she gets hurt in this game. Has a little bit of an ankle issue. She last year, I think, hit a real high where she put herself up there in the conversation of just one of the stars of women's college basketball. She has eligibility to maybe come back next year and run it back with what would be a very, very loaded LSU team that you could tell me is the favorite next year. Haley Van Lith could come back as well. They have a good recruiting, like all this stuff. Should she enter the draft and maybe be a top 7 pick? I'm going to pull up the ESPN mock and see where they have her in the latest one. But what about, or should she go back? What do you think she should do?
So them losing, I think, makes me lean go back. But obviously they've already won one, so it's not in a vacuum just that being the decider like it might be for some players. I would say, though, that I saw some comment, right, that if she were to go back, I think On3 did an article about it because they were talking about her NIL money and doing the math on all that, like we've seen people do with Cailtin Clark, and there was a line in their write-up that was like, she'll work herself toward being an even higher pick than she would be this year. And I'm kind of sitting there like, why? Just because she was around for another year? Like a lot of players, the timing is important. You know, when do you make the jump to working with professional skill development people, being on a professional team, being around, you know, I don't want to say better coaching as some sort of disrespect to Kim Mulkey, but I think we would assume that that's the case, and you can dedicate yourself to training 24/7 or close to it rather than being in school and dealing with NIL crap, which is a lot more obnoxious than pro endorsement money and everything else. So I don't think it's a given that another year makes her a better prospect, but I do think she needs work as a prospect. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but she shot 48% from 2 this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And, you know, the numbers aren't equivalent with the way we might look at that for a male prospect who's a post player or whatever. But her teammate, who's a guard, Flau'jae Johnson, shot 54% from 2. So let's use that as the comparison. I just think that the pathways to Angel Reese being really, really good as a pro are either she plays with an even more high motor than she already does, or at least what we saw in that first half on Monday is for 40 minutes.
That was unbelievable.
And that includes...
holy shit, she was great in that first half, should be said.
Amazing. But that's kind of like what it has to be, right? If she's not going to be able to consistently create offense for herself or put the ball on the ground, or she's a good passer, but she's not going to be a point forward out here. So for her ceiling to increase, I think she either has to just be like a bat out of hell at all times and, you know, the skill doesn't have, maybe she can kind of make up for it, or she has to really become a better shooter and maybe develop her handle and just be more of a shot creator for herself than she already is. Otherwise, I get why talent evaluators and, you know, the people who do these mock drafts and talk to execs about these players, I get why she's not a given to be a lottery pick. I don't think it's a lock that she's some kind of all-star given where she's at right now. So I would say go back, but I also think there's a way we have the same conversation in a month or in a year, and we're like, yeah, those are still the weaknesses, and maybe that's just who she is as a player.
I think go back. I think another year to just work on some stuff in that environment with a really good team. I think there's an advantage to that for her. This is also like I'm not the 2025 draft skew. If you look just at some of the names that are maybe going to be in that draft, it does skew just a little more guard heavy. So if there's like a need for a forward, like maybe there's an opportunity there for. But I do think just another year to work on some of her offensive skills and maybe the consistent motor on a team that will, I think, be really great next year. I think that presents just a really unique opportunity for her. That does that kind of opportunity for her to go back and make a lot of sense just doesn't exist in the men's game, and it still exists in the women's game. And I think it's a path that you can get a lot out of when it does actually present itself. Like more time for her to mature, to maybe just have like a more normal year. I mean, just what Flau'jae Johnson and what Kim Mulkey and like all the stuff kind of said about her and what like some of the things she openly talked about having to deal with. Maybe just a more normal year like does her some good.
She also got suspended by the program for reasons we don't understand. So she seems to be on good terms with Mulkey and everything else, but we don't know what happened there and if that would be a threat of happening again, if it was academics or something like that. Could she end up being in the... I don't know. it is a situation that's more complex than just about like, you know, her jumper or whatever. And I get that, but yeah, I think a couple things they could do to put her in a better position to succeed, Chris, would just be, to me, get another post player, get another center so that she's not overstretched having to play center all the time. Maybe in some matchups that makes the most sense, but other times I think less so. And I think that they would benefit. I mean, they hoped this would be Van Lith, and that transfer just has not panned out. Van Lith was not good in this game. We know the defensive meme was funny, but I think too, as an offensive shot creator, she just never really came around. If they could get another guard who could really create offense and just kind of set the table, that would help everybody. So I could see them being a team that's better next year and a team that puts her in position to succeed next year. And then you can really talk me into, yeah, she will develop. But it's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the other side here. Let's go to Juju Watkins. And the question is, how can she get better? And Brendan, I just want to say, I think the obvious way to start with this is it's not even just about her. I think it's about the surrounding supporting cast of this team. She took a team that I think is frankly just still kind of figuring itself out, and frankly the talent wasn't all the way there. She took it pretty far. That's really encouraging for her. It says a lot about her. The recruiting class that Lindsey Gottlieb is bringing into USC next year, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you like I've crushed all the tape here because I haven't, but if you look at all the rankings on these,
it's the number one class in the country.
That's where I was getting to. They have the number 6 prospect, a wing forward, Kennedy Smith. They have 4 other top 100 prospects. They have another three-star prospect. They are apparently still in the mix for another top 100 caliber player. There are still like even like some names out there that we'll see what kind of happens in, but they're bringing in a really talented class, including a top 10 prospect in that class, for a coach that I think is very good, that is very smart, that knows the game, that I think played within the team's strengths this year. And Juju gets another year older, another year more mature, and gets better talent. I think that in itself is a path to that team and her being better a year from now.
Yeah, to me, and not to mention, right, hey, transfer X, do you want to come live in Southern California and play with the best player in the country?
Will Ferrell, use your NIL money. Let's go, my guy. Like, come on.
It's like that's not exactly a tough sell. So I have every expectation that the roster will be better. Is she not the most, like, technically skilled 18, 19-year-old basketball player? I mean, when is the last time you saw somebody as gifted as she is? Footwork, shooting range, IQ, instincts. I mean, forget level or league or whatever. I don't remember watching somebody where the floor was this high in a really long time.
I mean, I think you're right, just in the sense that she kind of had, like, the fact that for this team to work in a lot of ways, she had to set the freshman scoring record, and the way she did it just speaks to the fact that the floor is really high. Yeah. The process for her as a freshman is, like you could tell at times that I think she was a freshman, right? Like, you could just tell, like, you felt her bump up against that kind of young player wall that I think is just inevitable. But then you also just look at it and are like, oh, the floor is dumb high, and she's capable of a lot of things, and you just kind of expect, like, if that's your baseline at this age, what is the leap that's to come? Like, normally I think when we see prospects like this, men or women, Brendan, I do think like the steps become very organic to go up the next level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the footwork to get to the pull-up 3, the savvy of drawing fouls the way she does. She's also a really, really high-level help defender already, not to mention just being athletic and big enough to be good on the ball. She just is already so well-rounded. And yeah, the offensive mistake, she'll turn it over sometimes. I think it's really just deciding, it's like cycling between options, right? What do I do here? What do I do when the defense rotates this way? What happens when there's a big in my way? Do I try to draw contact? Do I go to the floater? Do I fade away? It's just, yeah, to your point, it's all the stuff that we always see, but that floor is so high. So I think the end result here is they're going to probably want to build this thing somewhat similarly to how we've seen UConn and Iowa build around Paige and Cailtin, given that there are some stylistic similarities. You just want to spread it out, maybe give her a post player, a pick and roll partner. I think building the way that they have with size at every position is a cool. I don't know, again, like you, I don't know the exact like height and weight and wingspan of all these 17-year-olds that they're about to get, but I would imagine it seems like that's Lindsay Gottlieb's kind of MO, is have big size advantages everywhere. I like that. I think you want a little more shooting than they had this year, and maybe not playing two kind of traditional bigs that are occupying the inside like they had to at times, and really just see what Juju can do. I think playing faster would help, but yeah, I'm right on in lockstep with you. I think a lot of it will be about her just acclimating to higher level of competition, what her teammates are like, and all that stuff. But I think like she already was second in the country in scoring, and to your point, broke this record and led them to an Elite Eight. It's like, I mean, literally the sky is the limit. I don't really know why you would say she's only going to get this high or she can't do this or that. Like she's on another level. This is we're already there.
Also, just as someone from Middle America, like I feel like I can say this, probably easier to recruit to Southern California than Iowa.
I would think.
Like, would you like?
And that's the transfer thing too, right? It's not going to be tough to. Now that that's the story we talked about from The Athletic, right? Of it only takes one. It's really true, especially when your campus is in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Like, would you like to be warm from November to December? You know,
win a shit ton of games and look really good next to a star. Yeah.
Yeah. Get some, like, go to Will Ferrell's frat parties. Like, honestly, like, that would be enough for me. And I'm not even a frat party guy. Just to say, like, I saw Will Ferrell DJ a set.
You think he's still doing that? He's like 50-something years old.
He did it. Brendan, did you not see, like, 6 months ago, he went viral for DJing his son's, like, frat party? This was, like, a thing.
Oh, his sons. Okay. I did not see that, but that makes more sense that it was related to somebody who's not 50.
Yeah, it'd be much more weird. Yeah. All right, last question, and I think this one will. Curious to see where we land, I guess. Is this still South Carolina's tournament to lose? They are minus 200 versus the field of BetMGM. They are massive favorites. I think 11.5 points on the spread, and like minus 800 favorites in their game against NC State. Brendan, I'm gonna say yes because I think they are the best team, but I don't think they're invincible. I do think that the winner of Iowa-UConn will be a extremely live dog in the national championship game. If that's what we get.
Yeah, I think to me it comes down to one of the players we highlighted in our preview, which is Malaysia Fulwiley. She had a solid start to the tournament, but in the past two rounds has not played as much and hasn't really been as featured. And it's not dissimilar to what we've seen ever since South Carolina lost Asia Wilson. The way they play, I guess it doesn't have to be Fulwiley. Tahina Paopao has also been pretty quiet. One of their guards needs to come alive. I don't think they can win counting on Camila Cardoso to just continue to be kind of the only efficient scoring option they have. That's not going to work out. So if you tell me Fulwiley and or Paopao can step up, yes, I think I still believe they have the most talent, the most versatility, and the advantage of playing NC State rather than having to go through the other side of the bracket, which has been hell. So I like it, but if they keep proceeding the way they have been, I would probably say that they don't win the championship.
They're just, to your point, they need one of the guards to come alive. One bad night. Also, just you're at the point of the year where one bad night and they don't have, like, the way that this could look if they play UConn or Iowa is that that's maybe the better team, but just one bad night against a superstar player, just kind of there's a door open there, you know?
Yeah, it's a cool little subplot we have that I know the other side of the bracket has been getting more attention, but NC State's best player, arguably, Sanaya Rivers, won a title with South Carolina as a freshman 2 years ago, transferred to NC State. I think she's originally from North Carolina, but just got recruited by Don Staley to come south and has completely blossomed and has now obviously led her own team to the Final Four. So that'll be a cool little subplot, but kind of a what could have been, where that type of player, a dynamic, big scoring guard, is exactly what we would like to see South Carolina find. They had it, she left, and now she could come beat them. So that'll be fun.
Who's your official pick, just for the record? You going UConn?
I will say we have a final of South Carolina and UConn again, and I will say that I will pick South Carolina to win it because I do think they match up well with UConn and a depleted UConn especially. So I will still pick the Gamecocks, but they have some things to sort out, and one of those guards does need to show up. What's your pick?
I'm going Iowa beats UConn by 1 point. I think that game's going to be fucking awesome and close. And I think South Carolina beats NC State, and I'm going to pick Iowa to win it all. Cailtin Clark completes the run here. I just want to see the mania. The arena's a block from my house. Like, I want to just see what happens when a bunch of like drunk Iowa fans are living life. You know.
There is a Suns, I believe it's the Pelicans game at 3 local time next Sunday, and the championship game is at, I believe, noon or 12:30 local time for me. I might be missing the first quarter of Suns Pelicans.
Yeah, I will be having Cavs Clippers on Sunday. I'm not as interested in that as and the Cavs dealing with the LA nightlife bump versus the women's Final Four. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, this is a home game, so I'm literally meaning like I may just stay at my house and not drive to the arena and just plant myself. Yeah.
Honestly, good call. That's a good take.
Or you're doing the math of can I make the whole drive during halftime and not miss any, we've all been there. It's all right.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'll figure it out.
First world problems for us. But that's going to be it for the Just Basketball Show. I'm Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. Back on Friday with more in our first week at 3 week. Tap in, rate, subscribe, review if you have not already. Enjoy the hoops. Please turn in the women's tournament. It's going to be fucking awesome. We'll talk to you soon.